And James just joined the stage. You shared a really inspiring talk this morning about web history, how we got to this situation with JavaScript, the good and the bad. So thank you for that, and we'll try to share all the insights on LinkedIn and everything about this day and your talk. But back to our subject on dev careers and how to build meaningful careers. Could you share a little bit about your background, the turning points in your career, and how you got there?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I have a computer science degree, but when I applied to school and got in, they asked me what I wanted to study, and I really had no idea. So I was kind of looking at potential majors in the engineering school and chose computer science on a whim. I didn't really know anything about it. I had never done any computer science before. And so I started in, and I really enjoyed it in college. And Microsoft recruited on campus during my senior year. And so I got to talk to a recruiter, ended up applying for software engineer role, got rejected. Then I applied for a TAM role, a technical account manager, got rejected. And then they asked me similarly about technical evangelism, which sounded like a joke at the time, because it's even, it's more of a common phrase now, but even less like rare back then. And so anyway, that's where I started my career, was a technical evangelist at Microsoft. And I was giving talks and doing workshops and working with students and startups and that sort of stuff. And that's where I fell in love with creating content and with speaking and that sort of thing. So I went from there to do software engineering and architecture at FedEx for a few years and realized I miss doing all of this. And I wanted to get paid to do this instead of paying for myself to go to conferences. So I joined Auth0 at the time, who got acquired by Okta. My wife still works there. Then went to Planet Scale, and then have been doing content full-time for about 2 years now.
Pretty cool. And you spoke about rejection. I think right now the tech industry is going through a phase, let's say. Could you share a bit about your take on that and what it requires right now for a software engineer to start a career?
I think it's harder than it's ever been, which is kind of sad. I mean, I just gave a talk about this. There's been layoffs the past 2 years almost constantly, and I could put up a big name of logos of friends that I have at different companies that have been laid off. And so that means like those people are now,
James.
yeah. And
I got laid off 8 weeks ago. I was very lucky. 13 years of experience. I'm very lucky to have the network I do. I was able to find a job.
Yeah.
But you know, people like me are getting laid off. My friends, people I look up to, got laid off last
absolutely
year. Like people I would consider legendary. I don't know. I don't get starstruck much, but like, yeah.
Well, so in like the day before giving this talk about this whole situation, I texted my best friend forever who has worked at Google, and I never checked in with him during layoffs because he's literally the smartest person I've ever met. He went to Harvard, his wife went to MIT, his brother went to Harvard, his sister went to Harvard, like literally the smartest person. And he texted me and told me that he had been let go from Google. And to think about him getting let go, it's that same thing of like, there's no one smarter than him. So anyway, like layoffs are happening. It's happening a little less now, I think. But to your point, I think the network has never been as important as it is now. I think applying blindly to a job without some sort of connection just doesn't work. You hear people apply to 100, 200 roles and they never hear back. Like if you don't have some sort of connection, that's a very common story. So there's a really important quote that I like that is, you don't start to build your network when you need it. You start to build it for when you need it in the future. And so by the time something like that happens, and that was exactly my experience with Planet Scale, I was actually let go.
I remember, yeah, you did an amazing job on social media, like hustling for, right?
Well, it's funny. I posted about it and I said that I was looking, and then similar to you, like my inbox was flooded with opportunities, and I'm very privileged to like have built the reputation and brand and connections. But that's why I think things like this are so important, and your network has never been more important than it is right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Minko is going to join us on stage. Hi.
James, just a quick follow-up. Do you already consider going to events like this one and talking in public? Did it help your career? Did it help your network to rebound on such events?
Yeah, I think going to events is one of the best things that you can do. I mean, if you look at an attendee perspective, you get to hear from people, professionals, and I don't consider myself an expert very often, but you get to hear from experts in the industry. And I think just the learning opportunity and being a part of the conversation that's happening is huge. But there's also the networking piece where, like, I know a lot of people online. I spend a lot of time on Twitter, for better or for worse. And there's a very different level of relationship and connection when you get to meet that person in person. That's a whole different thing. And so as much as you can to make those connections, maybe online, and stay connected, but then to see them in person, I think that's a totally different level of relationship. And I can't tell you how many opportunities that I get either from my personal content or from job opportunities that I get from going and just being a part of the community. And I personally hate the word networking. I think it's like really sad and sterile and cold. And so my translation to that is, I call it investing in your community. It's showing up, it's being a part of the Discord conversations, it's answering questions, it's asking questions, just showing up and being there and supporting your community, to me, is the best form of networking.
Thank you.
Definitely. I think, James, you have to pick up your daughter. So thank you so much for sharing a few minutes with us, and see you the next dotJS Conf.
Yes, I hope so. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.
Thanks again. I'm going to turn to Minko and give him the mic. If you could maybe tell us about your career path, what led you where you are there to today, I mean, sorry, and what were the turning points in your career, the key moments you had to maybe make some decisions, or just go.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So over the past couple of years, over the past about 15 years, I've been doing a lot of open source contributions. I had a startup, and I'm the product lead for Angular now. I guess back in 2012 or so, or 2011, I applied to Google. I was really excited about it, and I got rejected. And I took it really, really seriously. I was depressed for a couple of months. I was thinking, what's the point of writing code anymore? I suck at it. But I continued contributing to open source. And I remember when I was following Adios Manny back then, and he tweeted one of my repositories and said, such a great job. And this brought me back to life again. I kept contributing. I ended up building some tools that Google started using internally. And the Angular team invited me to join them. And at that time, I was building my startup, so I couldn't really join them. I wanted to see where the startup is going to go. We ended up setting the startup, and I went through the interview process and ended up joining Google 2018. And since then, started leading the product.
That's cool. So that's two experiences of rejections, and you see where you guys went to from that. I think it's really inspiring in that time for maybe a lot of junior developers or confirmed guys who are looking for inspiration and the energy to keep up. And maybe a way to do that while not having right now the opportunities is to work on open source projects. And you did a lot of work on that. So I guess my question is, how do you get involved in meaningful projects, and how do you then expand? Can you share a little bit about your experience and you as well, Jessica?
Yeah, slowly, gradually over time. It's very intimidating to join a very mature projects like Angular or any of the other frameworks, or contributing to Cypress. It's a complicated platform that people, like professional engineers with 15 years of experience, are working on. But at the same time, like starting small, helping with documentation or something, you're getting free mentorship or free internship wherever you are from some of the best engineers out there. It's fantastic. Like, definitely open source has been a critical part of my career.
Yeah, for people looking to contribute to open source projects, I think starting small is especially important. Picking projects that aren't that are truly open and not backed by a company, I think, is the other trick. People who are maintainers who are not getting paid would like more free help. And so making sure that you can connect with that maintainer first to ask them what their plans are for the project, and seeing if there's some part of the project that you would be kind of good at. So for me, I generally end up writing tests and doing test migrations and framework migrations. I do a lot of heavy lifting on build tooling and test tooling, just because it's easy for me, not because I like it. Like, I don't like testing, but I'm good at that thing and I like helping the maintainer. And so I'll take a smallish project, talk to the maintainer on Discord in the right, section of the internet Discord world, and yeah, go from there. And over time, very slowly over time, you'll learn that everybody knows each other, and they'll all send you to other projects that need similar help. So that's slowly.
And maybe a specific question for you that I get a lot in France. How do you move from QA to software engineering?
Okay, that's probably for me. I don't know. Did you ever do QA? No. Okay. Yeah. How did I move from QA to software? Accidentally. I started manual testing. I'd never written any code before. I was given an iPad and they're like, "What's wrong with this app?" And I grew up very poor, so I'd never seen an app before. When I was like an iPad 2, and I was like, "What's it supposed to do?" And they told me it was like a map. And I tapped around. I rotated the iPad, and the CEO was like, "She rotated it," and it crashed. And he was like, "Do you like a job?" I was 16, and so that's the start into QA land. And from there, month 2 of the job, I was like, "Hey, developers, what do you do when I give you the bug report?" And they wheeled over a whiteboard, and they were like, "Here's a for loop, and here's big O notation." And from there, I spent about 2 years playing around trying to solve my own problems in QA. So I didn't change jobs. I went for that 2.5 years first. And then from that point, I was like, okay, if I can get a software job, I'm going to take it because I can code at that point. And it took a minute. I ended up getting a QA engineering role in New York it was good for me money. Like I was very, very happy with it. And then a month into that, they flattened the entire org. So they said, we have no DevOps, we have no QA, everybody's a software engineer now. And in my talk, I mentioned cruise control, the first CI framework, open sourced. And that was my CTO, worked on cruise control and was at ThoughtWorks. And so a lot of ideas from I don't know, early software development lifecycle stuff came in, and we didn't have silos. We're like, nobody owns testing. Everybody owns making the thing work. Like everybody owns getting it onto the internet. So that was the shift. It was pure luck. There's a little bit of make your own luck in asking people like, so what do you do when I give you the bug report? But aside from that, yeah.
I really love the solve your own problems. try that, start with that.
That works better. What works best, I mean. I have another question about teaching, because I noticed you both had an experience of teaching at ViewMastery on Ionic or maybe at Sophia University. What would you say it brought you as a personal being, not the students you had, but you, what did it, in which way did it help you?
In which way did teaching help? Is it? Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so understanding things in depth, that's where teaching really helped, because students would ask any question and I really needed to understand everything in depth. I ended up re-implementing AngularJS back then, and we had an exercise where you implement the framework in 200 lines of code, the basic data structures and algorithms. This really helped to understand the fundamental like similarities in frameworks also, and focus on data structures and algorithms, which I've been finding that it has been paying off. You don't have to have it since the beginning, but the more you have it, the more you understand data structures and algorithms over time, the better it gets.
Yeah, as far as what you gain from teaching? Or yeah. I like finding parallels in the questions people ask. Again, like you were saying, framework agnostic questions. It's all the same problem. We're all solving the same stuff. And if you can teach people the abstract concept, that is always really like satisfying. Like I like it. I'm like, oh, I found a pattern. Like this is great.
Okay, so it helps in finding patterns for the students' questions, and it helps gathering your thoughts and making sure you know everything about every little tidbit you could be asked about. That's correct. Okay.
I mean, I never know everything. Like the answer to know everything is just say it depends to them and then ask them questions. Yeah. And figure it out with them. You're like, I don't know, but let's figure it out together.
Yeah.
And they're like, really? Yeah.
And overall, you see that over time, like just things have their trade-offs all the time. So you never have like a very specific answer to a particular engineering question.
And Congressman,
Lesh is joining us.
so you understood all these guys went on stage, so we're having them when they are available. Are you okay? Thanks, Ben. Thanks for joining the chat. So we are talking about basically developer careers and giving insights to the audience about how to break through, how to have meaningful decisions in your career as a developer. You have an impressive background. I don't know if you can try to compact that in a in a quick way for the audience, but maybe some of them don't know you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I mean, my career didn't change until I became open-minded and I started helping more people on the internet, just like being kind and contributing answers to things like Stack Overflow and helping people answering questions in public and contributing to open source. And I mean, it's I've said this actually a couple times today, and I've said it in other podcasts, but really, I believe in like being conspicuously helpful. So like it's good to be helpful, and it's I think it's a lot of people think, well, it's not altruistic if I help people and I want to take credit for it. And this is your career. Like if you're gonna help somebody, then make sure that you're seen doing it, because then people who are in positions of authority or maybe popularity or even a position of power at work will notice you, and your career will go places. Like networking is really important. Like things are not going to happen to you if you stay in your house and do the same thing and try not to be noticed. Like nothing, like no luck will come to you in that. Like maybe some, like it's possible a job will fall through your ceiling and hit you in the face, but most likely the only way that you're really going to see your career take off is by taking the risk of going out and being amongst people, helping other people out, making sure people see you be helpful to those people, and you get a reputation for being a smart person, a kind person, a generous person, and you learn things by interacting with other people. And you keep an open mind. If someone's junior to me, that doesn't mean that I know more than them. It just means I know different stuff than them, or maybe I know like a collective amount more than them, but there's stuff they know that I don't. So it's really, really important to keep an open mind and learn from folks, help folks, interact with people, get out there, don't hide, speak up in meetings, those sorts of things.
And this morning you talked about quadrants, technical quadrant.
Yeah.
Like sort of frameworks for, do you have a quadrant for identifying the opportunities, knowing which projects to be involved in, selecting them and putting your energy at the right place?
I mean, so as an example, the first contribution I ever had to Angular was like one of my first ever open source contributions. And that was born out of necessity. Like I needed date, time, input handling in Angular 1. But it's one of those things where, did I know exactly how I was going to do it? No. So I had to figure that out as I went. And I think the biggest thing is either do it where you see a need, or do it where you have a passion for it and you're going to enjoy it. If you do it just like, oh, Ben Lesh said that I should contribute to open source, therefore I'm going to pick a popular project and I'm going to find an issue and I'm going to knock it out. No, you're going to do a horrible job at that. If your heart's not in it, you're probably not going to do a wonderful job. You might not even notice some of those big projects. Like instead, I would say, develop your own thing or write passionate blogs about stuff. Like contributing code to a project isn't the only way to contribute to that project. Like half the time, community knowledge is like, and better documentation out in the world is way more important. Like there's a lot of really smart engineers that work in Angular. I can guarantee you they don't need like a lot of code written for them. But what I can tell you for a fact is some of their documentation, I'm sorry, is horrible. Like they need better stuff. Like RxJS is the same way. those people are heroes. Those people, but just make sure your name's attached to it somehow, so people can see, oh, look, Kent C. Dodds does this amazing thing on React. Did he write React? No, he didn't write React. I'm sure he's contributed a couple times, but like he's not the author of the thing, and yet he's widely known because he's helped tons of people learn how to write React code.
Yeah, that's actually pretty smart to find other ways to contribute, not always the main one that everyone's looking at. Do you guys agree on passion and interest being the main driver?
Yeah, I'll add to this one. My first open source project that got some visibility and landed on the first page on Hacker News was mk.js, Mortal Kombat with HTML5 canvas. And I just built it because it was fun. I wanted to play Mortal Kombat and I couldn't run it on my Linux machine. So I was like, let me implement it in JavaScript.
That's a choice. That's a beautiful choice. Like I appreciate that you did that. That's art. For me, I like to have passion about the things I solve. And technically, sometimes I'm like, yeah, this is fun. But sometimes when I'm not motivated, I help projects because my friends need the help and I'm social. So I like making my friends' lives easier. I like making them happy. I'm very socially motivated. And so I'll work on projects that my friends are working on because it's easy to talk to them. It's easy to ask them, what are you working on? Why? That's the hard stuff with open source, is not knowing what the maintainer wants. It's this black box, which is why I go Discord first, build the relationship, and then I'm comfortable contributing to the project. Sometimes there's technical things that I'm like, I know exactly probably where this person's going and I can contribute to this. But
yeah, that's a really good point. Sometimes someone would want to implement a feature in Angular and they'll spend weeks trying to implement it. And it will turn out that it just doesn't align with the Angular's vision. And it's really hard for us to not merge such pull requests because we see that people have spent so much time working on them, but at the same time, it's not going to be good for the product. So talking to the team or like opening an issue and discussing the idea is.
Yeah, definitely. Like it goes back to your network and like working with friends, choosing your projects also with people you want to work with. And you can make, I don't know, like some connections with like rock and roll bands and how the Rolling Stones and everything, they're better together for sure. Do you have some sort of sense as well of I don't know, creating those teams of I don't know, super friends and super talented complementary people that are like constantly connected with you? Do you nurture something like that?
Well, I mean, all right. So the open source world at a certain level is pretty small. And if you're around it long enough, you do meet and know a lot of these people. There's people whose I know their addresses and phone numbers to like, I'm not gonna like give out names, but there are people that you would be surprised, like, why does the RxJS guy know this guy's address and phone number and the name of his wife? Like that's weird. Like, but it's because the world is so small and you hang out in these things and it's networking and socializing. But what I can tell you is, I saw just as much success in my career. Like this is what's happening to people you see up on stage here is unusual. Like it's not normal for people to be like, oh, suddenly there's more people following me on Twitter than live in my hometown. Like that's not a normal event just because I write code. It's weird and unusual. But like if you're just networking at your local meetups and you meet people in your own community and you get a reputation, oh, this person's smart, like your career will go up and you will have phone numbers that are important in your phone book and you'll get laid off and you'll just call somebody and they'll be like, yeah, no problem. Like we've got an opener, or I'll talk to my manager. We'll try to get an opening for you here because it's an opportunity to get someone I know is good. So like, again, it goes back to being kind and generous and sharing your knowledge and meeting people. Like it's people skills outweigh technical skills in this career massively. I have no computer science classes in my background, zero. I entered this not knowing what a class was, much less an abstract class. I had to ask questions to learn all of this stuff. And so the only reason I did any good through my whole career was, I was able to learn things on the fly by using social skill to get the knowledge that I needed. And make the career choices by making doing some career networking and helping people in public and being seen.
And a lot of serendipity, you would say?
I'm sorry.
Serendipity, like
Oh yeah.
random
It's total.
meetings.
There's a ton of luck. So there's a lot of luck and then just the good sense to capitalize on that luck.
And Matthieu, what's your take on open source in France? Because I'm sure serendipity in the US, possibly you get into a concentration places where there's a huge concentration. And how is it for, I don't know, like
well,
other
I know
countries?
these two I know, they both got their jobs because they're incredibly good at what they do. I, on the other hand, tricked people into thinking I was smart enough, and then I became smart enough while I was at the job. So yeah, it's when people ask me to write, I was asked to write RxJS. You know what I told them? I'm not qualified. That was my exact answer, and they insisted. And you know, here I am in Paris. You know, different.
There's another subject I wanted to ask you about, because you talked about layoffs, and so did the other speakers, and usually it's a key turning point on a moment of tough decisions. I mean, especially when you are well known and I'd say up the decision chain, or maybe some in the shoes of someone with a role that is not so common. Did you have to think about, am I looking for a new opportunity on a very rare market, or maybe am I stepping down and looking for something more comfortable and with more opportunities, or maybe I'm dedicating my time to making events and talking everywhere in the world so that I can boost my popularity? Did you have some tough decisions to make like this?
So I think the question, because it's a little loud, I think the question you're asking is like, at this point in my career, like how do I find new opportunities, or how do I decide what direction I want to go? Is that right? I mean, all right. So I've been doing this for 25 years or something like that. I'm a frugal guy who's been extraordinarily financially lucky. So I'm in a position where I mostly am looking for places where I can have impact. Like I decide what I like to work on based off of, am I going to work with people I enjoy working with? I'm going to have is there a project that's somewhat interesting to me? And am I going to have impact? Now, don't get me wrong. I will not do it for not, like, if they're not going to pay me the right amount of money. Like that's like, I'm not a charity, but like, those are the things that I tend to look for, but it's because I'm fortunate. If you're out there and you're like, I just need a job to buy food for my family, like, take the job. Like, most jobs kind of suck. Like, just find the thing that you like at the job and enjoy that as much as you can, and keep your eyes open for better opportunities. And the way you do that is, again, getting out to events like this, talking to all of these smart people around you, making connections, being remembered for being kind and nice and helpful. And like, things will come your way. Luck will, hopefully, I may everyone here make more money than me. Like, honestly, go be bazillionaires. That'd be great.
You keep saying luck. And I was talking to an attendee earlier. There's an article, if people want like a Googleable thing, there's an article called Making Your Own Luck by Sachs. He's a developer out in California. He's a prolific blogger. And he divides luck and how you maybe slip, trip, and fall into it in like 4 quadrants. It's a very good article. People should read it. And it's basically everything you described. I grabbed the mic from Minko earlier. I was going to say something. I was like, oh, Ben just defined it. Yeah. But luck is really difficult to come by unless you put yourself in situations where it might find you. Yeah.
Minko, do you want to add something on the matter?
Very much agree with what he said.
All right.
And by the way, so lots of people here may be willing to do good connections and everything. What's each of you, your most underrated tips of making something really meaningful out of an event like this?
Out of an event like this?
Yeah.
So back when I was just an attendee at events, which has been a minute, somebody was like, you should join Twitter. And I was like, no, that sounds boring. I don't like Twitter. I don't like, and this is back when you had to log in. I don't like it when people post links on Discord and I have to log into it. It's annoying. And they convinced me to do it. She convinced me to do it. And that was a good decision. So I think people should walk around, talk, chat, connect on your social media of choice. I don't check LinkedIn, but I hear that it's where people actually connect nowadays, not Twitter. So
Do you have tips?
Yeah, just connecting with as many people as you can, talking to the speakers, seeing that they're just normal people. Like there is just like nothing special about me that I can think of. And I would love to talk to anyone and just see that we're operating pretty much with the same skill sets and we have similar opportunities. And that's something that I found valuable, just connecting with people I've been really enjoying talking to or like admiring and seeing that they're just people like me.
What was your first conference? Minko.
My first conference I can remember was Spring One. I saw Josh Long from Spring.
Mhm.
He was my conference speaker idol, and yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, we hang out now in San Francisco.
So, if you all right, so if you want to make the most out of an event like this, you should, in my opinion, like network with these folks around you. Like it's tempting to be like, I want to go up and talk to the speaker, and I'm happy to talk to anybody. I am. But you have to understand that my memory is horrible, and I've talked to thousands of people at these things, and like, but like, talk to the other people around you, and you don't have to talk about tech. Some of the I've made long-term friends with people who are like attendees at conferences where we talked hardly at all about tech. Like we mostly just talked about having kids, or if like anybody here is into artwork or something like that. Like if there's any event or anything going on, or you just like ask people what their interests are, it doesn't have to be tech. Like I love, don't get me wrong, I love programming. Clearly, you could get me up there and I could talk about it all day long. I could sit up there until people were so bored they wanted to leave. But at the end of the day, like, would I like to talk about something else? Absolutely, I would. And the people around you are the same way. So if you make those connections and you talk about those things and you connect with people, you share a drink, could be coffee, could be a beer, could be wine, whatever. And then get contact information and follow up with them. Like make actual friends. And those people are the people where you're like, oh, you know, or they might be like, oh, you know, I got laid off and I need work, or I'm thinking about changing careers or whatever. And they'll reach out to you and you'll be like, oh yeah, you know, I remember this person. And they seemed like they were pretty knowledgeable about XYZ. And also I kind of like hanging out with them anyways. Like, I mean, people are going to push a little harder to get you on their team if they enjoy your company, not just because you're, you know, a technical powerhouse like that. Oh, technical skill comes with time and practice. Social skill also comes with time and practice, and people don't think about it or try it, but like you should. Like if you want to make the most out of this event, talk to the other folks around you, make some friends, get some contact information, follow up, go out and, you know, have dinner with them or whatever. And that snowballs because they make friends, you make more friends, and so on.
Yeah, I also, to what you said, I also love talking about tech. I'm also right now struggling with my garden at home. So I really love to connect with people who can help me put that together.
What kind of garden is it? What kind of garden is it?
Just a big garden with a lot of weeds right now.
Oh, you mean like actual nature?
Yeah.
Not like arrow garden?
No, like an actual nature, yeah.
There's dirt when you plant things?
A lot of it.
Holy crap. All right. Thank you.
I mean, it's California, so it's like a semi-arid climate. Like, so you're kind of forcing a garden where nothing wants to grow. But yeah, so if there's any gardening tips for Minko, please help him.
Honestly, so I just started taking care of carnivorous plants, and I think they're all dead at home. And I'm really sad about it because they're expensive. You try to get a Venus flytrap and it's like $50. Man, do you have any you agreed with me enthusiastically.
No, I just have cactuses.
You have cactuses?
Yeah, they grow so hot there.
Okay. Yeah.
So see, that's exactly the kind of conversation you need to have.
Talk about carnivorous plants, weird hobbies. I juggle. I taught the guys over at the 11 Labs how to juggle the cornhole bean bags that they had. I was like, oh, I can throw these and catch them. Yeah. Make connections, juggle things, throw things, catch them.
Cool. So it's time for questions. If you guys have some questions for the speakers, please feel free to raise your hand. We have a lot of reaction in the live stream. And one of the questions from Cedric was, I think it's going to be interesting for a lot of folks. What level of knowledge do you guys expect from beginners in coding and also for intermediate? Is there something that stands out of the
I can
the basics.
grab it. I'll eagerly grab it. There's the what I personally expect answer and what you have to do to get into tech answer. There's like what I care about, what you need to do to not get fired if you have a job and to get hired, right? 3 angles. And the only one that matters is getting in the door and staying in the door and making friends with people enough that they will keep you. That's it. So find out what the people around you personally like about you, keep doing that thing. And yeah, that's how I do it, at least.
Yeah, I'll say different companies have different standards also. Like Google values very much algorithms and data structures. A lot of companies value you understanding particular APIs, let's say being able to build a web app with Angular or React. So very much depends what you're looking for.
Sorry, to clarify, my base level of expectation for people to get a software job is very low. Like if you're a critical thinker, I would probably hire you. If you have a good intuition for what you should do technically, or you can learn, I would probably hire you. Am I currently in charge of a hiring team? No. So not useful for anybody practically trying to apply it. Data structures though, that's hireable.
Yeah, I mean, for beginners, I mean, I got my first job. I got by literally going into an interview, asking like half of the question, answering half of the questions wrong. And when they asked me why I thought I should get the job, I'm like, because I'll work for $10 an hour.
Did you?
That's what I told them. What's that?
You also made $10?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
First
So that's how I got the job. And honestly, I think for a junior, I would really only expect if they're really a beginner, I would expect that they are people that, again, critical thinkers, like you're saying, they have good communication skills. If you don't know something, ask. Don't just do it. What do you like? How would you like it if someone was working on your car and they're like, I don't know where this part goes, and they just screwed it into anything, right? That's not good. So make sure, like, and you'll only have to ask a couple times and then you'll learn, right? So people who communicate before they go off the deep end with something, that's good. You know, getting regular feedback, continuously trying to learn things. If I see someone that's doing that, it's like, all right, they suck now, but I know for a fact they're going to be better than this other person over here who's, you know, been working a job for 10 years and has never gotten any better, right? Like, so for a beginner, that's what I look for. Intermediate, you kind of still look for the same thing. It's just now there's a certain amount of experience that they're going to need. Like, experience is good because you've seen more bad things happen. You know how to debug more problems. Beginners don't know those things. And it's okay that they don't know those things. They will, trust me, you will debug problems eventually. Like, because you're going to create them. And there's going to be some guy like me that's going to sit there and be like, I could solve this, but I don't want to. You do it. Like, you made this problem. You struggle with it for half a day and I'll come help you. That's like,
you mentioned something that reminded me of the previous question of like, what do you get out of conferences like this? And you're like, talk to other people. There's some soft stuff that I didn't learn until somebody told me about it. And so what you should do at conferences is find mentors. I think all of us, our inboxes have DMs in them saying, hey, do you have time to mentor me? And I don't. I barely have time to go to conferences. Like my carnivorous plants are dead. And I have to have personal stuff. But yeah, find friends in the audience, people that you vibe with, and ask them stuff, soft questions like, hey, I'm really interested in going off the deep end on this. And they'll be like, whoa, reel it back. That's where you find those informations, is with friends and mentors and coworkers.
you know the really annoying person at work that gives their reviews that are really persnickety? Like, you go and you get a review and they're like, I don't know if I do it this way. I don't know if I do it this, like every single line has some comment on it. Like honestly, like I challenge you to ask that person to review and like take note, be like, all right, I had 8 comments from this person this time. The next PR I have, I'm going to ask them to review it and I'm going to see if I get less than 8. And I'm serious. And then eventually you'll get to the point. Now, don't do it if they're actually a bad developer, because you might learn bad things. But, you know, odds are that if you're willing to find somebody who's very senior, who is really picky about your stuff, maybe they're even a jerk. Who cares? Get them to volunteer their information, their seniority, to help you see what's wrong with your code. And don't be annoyed by it. Just see if next time you can get less feedback. And eventually, when you're getting hardly any feedback from this person, you'll realize, wow, I've gotten a lot better at what I'm doing. Like the senior person who was a huge jerk before hardly even reviews. You just get rubber stamped, you get right through. So I don't like those people either, but I'm saying it is a pathway to learning a lot more.
It's also about interpersonal skills. I mean, you have to maybe you could ask this person, why wouldn't you do it this way? How would you do it? And take the information out of him instead of just getting upset and reacting bad. There was another question I wanted to ask from Nicolas about art skills this time. And he's requesting some tips on be it books, podcasts, resources to learn art skills. Do you have anything to share about this?
You were looking at me? Do you want me to? Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, shit. God. This is a soft book that I was going to recommend. He wants hard skills. All right. So the book that this is not even relevant, but this is the book that changed my life. So I'm going to plug it. Structure and Interpretation, SACP of Computer Programs. It was originally done in Lisp. It's still great. It doesn't matter that it was done in Lisp. It's actually even better because of that. And you should read it. It's also known as the Wizard book. Yeah. MIT used it as their textbook for years.
Okay, thank you, Minko. Do you have any resource you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'll say for me specifically, I really like a book called The Dragon Book.
That was the other one. That was the compiler book, the Dragon book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's about compilers, but also everyone like really has different learning style. So might not be the best fit for you. You can try it out. So you can try resources from a lot of the educators online. Ben mentioned Kinsey Dots. He does great stuff. There are many other people out there. Just try different things, and whatever works best for you, just go with it. And after that, find something else.
I'm sorry to tell all the book lovers that I don't read very many books. It's my ADHD is like, oh my God, I've read 5 paragraphs of this. I already know where this is going. I mean, it's not like I'm going to read a book on RxJS or something, right? But I don't know. My style of learning, it tends to be more in building something. So I read source code on GitHub a lot. Like I'll be like, I want to build this thing. I'll have my first attempt of how I think I should build it, and I'll hit all sorts of weird roadblocks and problems, and then I'll go find another project that did solve it, and I'll be like, wait, how did they solve this problem? And then you have to surf through the code and figure it out, and then sometimes you get on some side quest where you're like, wait, what is this weird fibers thing? Or like when they have to go learn about that, and then you come back. So most of my career, like learning wise, has been spent learning by literally just looking at other people's code. Sometimes I send them questions. There's been open source authors in the world that even since I've become like Lesh RxJS guy, I've sent them questions like, hey, why did you do this here? Like, I'm just curious. And they always give you an answer, usually anyways. So I don't know. It's not a book recommendation, but I recommend reading the source code of the libraries you use.
Where do you go when you want to ask why you did it? Did you open an issue, find the Discord related to this person, or how do you do?
I honestly think I did it for the same reason some people read books. Like I just opened it up because I was curious. Like if you use something and you're like, I have no idea how this works, that makes me uncomfortable. Like I'm very uncomfortable not knowing how something works. I called a function, magic happened. Like what? So I want to know. And so I tend to just out of curiosity, go dig into it.
I get excited. I'm not uncomfortable. I'm just like, oh, there's a new thing. I have no idea how I would do that. Like I am unable to write this code. How did they do it?
Right.
Like I get super stoked.
Yeah.
Curiosity. We'll take one last reaction from the live stream. And then if you guys want to ask questions, please raise your hand and I'll give you the mic. So one reaction was about someone seeing more luck in California, Texas, New York, even London and Paris than elsewhere. In the age of full remote and everything, do you really think it's worth it moving to hubs like that?
No. I've lived in cities my whole life. No.
I'll say part of the reason why I moved to California is because I love the climate there. But I was able to contract with Google from Bulgaria, where I'm originally from, and I learned a lot from the Angular team by contributing to the project from Bulgaria. So practically, I mostly value from like now having a big garden and trying to figure out how to weed it out properly.
Yeah, the biggest strokes of luck I've had in my career were like getting invited to even interview at Netflix, which happened because I was contributing to Stack Overflow from Pennsylvania in like 2013. So I don't know, like, again, I'll go right back to what I was saying before, just getting yourself out in public, and the public is this huge digital space now. Is like, if it weren't for getting out on the internet, let's just say all of the cool tech jobs were mostly in California, and there's a bunch of tech jobs in France, whatever. Like, there is zero chance I would ever be speaking at a conference in France because no one in France would have heard of me, right? So it's the luck of me coming here, and I do deem it lucky that I get to come do these things, did not come from me being in California. That came from me being out in a space where people saw me on the internet. And so I think that's the key, really.
So you're better off in your garage working on open source projects than moving to the big cities and I don't know.
Only if you're getting out. Only if you're getting out there and networking with people online and interacting with people, asking questions, having normal interactions about gardening, even on Twitter. Like, seriously, like if you showed up consistently when you see some open source maintainer and he's like, oh man, I had the hardest time fixing my refrigerator the other day, and you were like, oh, I had the same problem last week. I changed a condenser coil and it was fine. Like that person's going to remember you. They're going to be like, wow, this person's a normal person that actually treated me like a normal person. So luck, making your own luck, in my opinion, comes from interacting with other people. And even if you're working on the world's coolest open source project, if you did it in a silo and didn't interact with anybody and you built this thing, maybe in an unlikely scenario, everyone starts using it. That's the only way they're going to know who you are. And even then, they're not really going to know anything about who you are or whether or not they want to work with you or they want to invite you to a conference because you're an unknown quantity as a human. And the human is the important part, not the code. So I just say, make sure you get out there.
So there's a small anecdote here. So has anybody heard of HTMX? Yeah, okay. So it's a technology that's gotten a lot of buzz recently over the last, like, I would say 18 months. It's actually been in development for 12 years. It didn't take off, and it was developed by a computer science professor in South Dakota in the middle of nowhere. And it didn't get any attention, and now it has a cult following. People love it, right? There was a conference, Big Sky Conf, in the middle of South Dakota. And for if you don't know the US, South Dakota is like, it's nowhere. Actually, speaker closing out at the end of the day at dotJS, the Vercel CTO, Malte, he was an exchange student in South Dakota, and Ben and I were like, really? How big was the town? Like 300? And he was like 1,500, and we're like, whoa. So middle of nowhere, open source project, never got anywhere except for when the creator of HTMX went on Twitter and made a meme account and just relentlessly made jokes on Twitter. And then he was able to talk about the open source project, but it's all human. It's just all human. Even, yeah, my time in New York City, I didn't make any connections. The first time I talked to the creator of Svelte, Rich Harris, was on Twitter. I had moved out of New York. Like, all of these connections are totally remote.
Questions, guys?
South Dakota is nowhere. Like, you could take all of France, lift it up and drop it near South Dakota and hit nothing. Everything would be fine.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to ask a question to the guys? Yeah, sure. I'll give you the mic.
Hello. My question is, I believe you are all experts on your topics, and
You put it.
yeah, okay. My question is, when did you first realize that you switched from senior to experts? The time frame, how did you realize, or is there a moment that you feel, okay, I am now the more than senior and experts?
Okay, we're all shaking our heads. I don't think any of us consider ourselves experts at anything. Is that about right? Yeah? Okay.
I don't know. It's
Do you feel like you're finally an expert at RxJS, Ben?
yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I don't know. So you get this title, senior level, whatever. Like, honestly, I don't think it even hit me that I might be an expert on anything until like the 15th conference I was at speaking about something. And then like all of a sudden there was this big rush of like, all right, so to be clear, I'm an art school dropout from a small town that never thought I would leave my hometown for much. And so to find myself in front of a bunch of highly educated, very smart people who speak multiple languages, right? It's sometimes I think, man, this is super intimidating. Like I don't even think I realized when the first job I had at Google, I was a tech lead and everyone answering to me was from West Point, MIT, Stanford. Those people wouldn't have, those colleges wouldn't have touched me ever. They would have looked at my GPA and went, what, this guy, like, no way is this guy going to be anything. So like the term expert is hard because at every level, you're always going to have some level of imposter syndrome about I don't really belong here. And I don't think you really realize you're an expert until one day someone asks you a question and like a reflex, words start flowing out of your mouth about the thing that you know. And it's like you realize you know it like deeper than just in your mind, you like know it in your soul almost, these certain facts about how you do something. And you're no longer doing it for money. You're doing it because you want to share it with people. I think that's kind of where people and everyone, I think everyone's probably an expert on something, realistically. I don't think that just the only experts in here are up here on the stage. Everybody out there is probably an expert on something, maybe code, maybe cooking, maybe gardening, whatever. But I'm not good at gardening, man, I'll be honest. But yeah, like it's just like a realization one day. People will call you an expert and you're like, oh, that's uncomfortable. But you are, if people say you are, you probably are. I mean, realistically.
Yeah, I would like to add to Ben's point because I had very similar experience. I'm from a small town in Bulgaria, 17,000 people. And it was my dream to study in Sofia University. So I didn't even like thought about reaching like Google or anything like that. And a guy who graduated Harvard, senior engineer at Google, wanted to hire me to work with him on a team. And that seemed incomprehensible for me. And like, so that's why I was motivating people to connect with as many people as you can at the conference and just see that everyone is just like, doesn't matter where they graduated or where they studied, they're just having same gardening refrigerator problems and trying to get better in whatever they do. And to being an expert, to share your knowledge, I started sharing way early when I knew very little, but I was trying to research a topic and understand it better. So that's why I was sharing it. And I was putting disclaimers there. I don't know really what I'm talking about, but hopefully someone finds it valuable.
I think I gave a non-answer when you responded, because I do always have imposter syndrome. But the first time that I really noticed something change was two things. The first time was on Discord when I was helping people in the help channel. I didn't need to look things up anymore. I was like, oh, I don't have to hit the docs as much. And then the second thing was when I could start to intuit what the maintainers were going to do, what their vision was, and what was going to happen next, because I understood the problem space so well. That was the second time. And you end up having to talk to the maintainers because you want to ideate on that space. You like kind of graduate out of docs and into what isn't even written. That's I think an expert like moment for me. Yeah.
All right. Very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I think it's a great way to end up this talk.